You can access the entire episode now on our website, forbiddenknowledge.news, Rokfin, Rumble, and all podcast platforms. Based on your research, who was here? According to our established history, we would say it was Native Americans, but it looks like there could possibly be many different cultures that could have been here before any type of modern settlers came along, right?
Well, yeah, I think one of the things that we've put in the book is, if you want to know who discovered the Americas first, it was the people living there. What we're proposing, when did we forget it and when did we remember it again? Then we can go back tens of thousands of years if we must. I think where we start looking at evidence, though, is in the Bronze Age. This is roughly 8,000 years ago, if not a little earlier, because we've got a real mystery. There's a lot of bronze in Europe, and there isn't enough copper or tin, which you need to form bronze, in Europe. Where on earth did it all come from? And this is where there's a few interesting notions, really, from the Great Lakes area of North America, northern Michigan, southern Canada, this area, where there are great scars on the surface of mines that were extracting tin. And that were extracting copper. Now, specifically in the Great Lakes, it's copper. Now, we are talking tens of thousands of tons of copper extracted. The workforce required would need to have been huge. We've got tin deposits in Central and Southern America. Again, the same story. And yet, we don't find any evidence of mass metallurgy in the native population. What we do find, though, is an oral tradition of the white man coming to take the metals from the ground. And that's very interesting because there's an arms race going on in Europe. Bronze Age cultures are at each other's throats, and it would make sense that they acquired, at least, or mined the materials needed to create bronze. Even before that, though, and this is where I sort of say tens of thousands of years ago, or at least 10,000 years plus, is you have what's called the Clovis point, and this is essentially how can I put this? It's essentially a sort of spearhead, if you will. The technology of which begins to emerge at the same time in the northern United States. We know that it developed in Western France. Again, how did that technology end up? When we say technology, we are talking about spearhead, but how did it find its way to the Americas? Now, again, these are speculations based upon what we understand of what's going on. My sense is that it found its way there because of trade, because Ice Age humans were essentially hugging the ice caps. That would explain how the Clovis point was exported, and then later, when we get to the Bronze Age, that sort of tradition of a voyage over seas led to the mining. That's my sense. So we're not talking about recent. We're not talking about 1492. Really much further back.
Do you think it was somewhere around the Bronze Age that, well, some have speculated that we did at one time have a global maritime culture that was very seafaring? Do you think it was around that time that we started global travel with ships and sea vessels?
I mean, absolutely. I can't see how not. I'm not too sure about a global society, if you will. But certainly in terms of global trade, I mean, humans are naturally nomadic. Doesn't sound right when we live in our cities and towns, but thousands of years of our development, we've been pretty nomadic, and we're explorers too. The reason that we look up and essentially look at the final frontier, if you will, and how do we get to the stars? Equally, how do we get to the new lands? We're explorers, so it'd be unusual for us to be exceptionally isolated. I remember, people who were drawing in caves 20 to 40,000 years ago are Homo sapiens sapien. They're us. They think like us. They might have different ideas about the world, but they think like us. They must have had some technology. I mean, non sequitur, I suppose, but okay, I'm a time traveller, and I've decided I'm going to go back to the Magdalenian period, 28,000 years ago, or thereabouts, and I've gone into one of the caves that I've visited on many occasions of Nio, Cave of Nio in southern France, where there are incredibly detailed cave drawings. After you've walked the 4 miles through the artificial entrance to get there, we don't know how they got in, you see all of these drawings. Now, I've travelled back in time, and some people in 2023 have said to me there's cavemen, they live in caves. So I found one of these cavemen, holding a flame, that kind of stuff, and I've then gone, blown out the flame, you now have a dead caveman. It is exceptionally dark. Now, you can't draw on walls without some lighting, and yet we find no evidence of soot, of burning. We find no evidence of any animal sacrifice. What we do find are drawings in acoustically perfect, cathedral-like chambers. So how did they light it? I mean, our society's got a problem, and our problem in today's society is we assume we are better than the society that came before us.
Yes.
It's arrogance. We think that because we've got lighting, brighter than the sun, we've got all of this, then we're somehow better. Well, electricity fails, then we'll learn very quickly how advanced we are. Technology is different, I think, further back you go. And if they could light, like even in the pyramids, and these caves, if they could light them up, what else were they capable of?
Right. Well, moving a little bit forward in history, in your book you say that there were Roman, Phoenician shipwrecks found off the coast of Brazil, and there's speculation that many, many different cultures possibly could have been through here. I've heard everything from Vikings to Egyptians, possibly the Templars, and even the Moors. Let's go through some of these, and what is your insights into some of that?
Okay, well, if we take the Romans first, and then we'll come back to the Egyptians, because why not?
Why not?
Let's jump forward and back in time. The Romans firstly described some islands known as the Isla Fortunae, the Fortunate Isles, and even put them on some of their maps. Ptolemy's maps from the 2nd century show these isles, and some academics have suggested actually they're the Canary Islands, but the problem with that is they're already on the map. Isla Canariae, the Isle of Dogs, quite literally, named after the dogs and the worship of dogs, I should say, on those islands. So, are the Fortunate Islands somewhere else? Is it the Azores or is it the Bahamas? We don't know, but let's just establish that the length of the Mediterranean from Gibraltar, the Pillars of Hercules,